Well, it's time now for a look at what's making the French newspapers this Tuesday with our press reviewer, Florence VILLEMINOT. Hello, Florence.
Hi, Lorna.
So we're going to start off with the right-wing paper, Le Figaro, and it's rather rubbing its hands this Tuesday because there's some very bad poll results out for President François Hollande.
That's right. Le Figaro tends to get excited when François Hollande isn't doing so well in the opinion polls, and today it's on their front page. It says that François Hollande's unpopularity is actually starting to worry the left. And if we take a closer look at the graphic there on the front page, it shows how Hollande's approval rating has evolved since its election in May. And despite a slight bump after the French intervention in Mali, well, as you can see there, it's gone down, and even further down from about 55% in May to 30% right now. So Le Figaro says this is proof that French people have no confidence in François Hollande. Inside, Le Figaro points out that Hollande actually, this is a record, and if you can see here, it's he compares him to other French presidents. Nicolas Sarkozy had a 37% approval rating after 10 months of being elected. Chirac, 40%. Mitterrand, 58%. So Hollande really isn't doing very well
in the doldrums there.
Le Figaro says that this is due to several factors. First of all, the economy, that's true, but also, and this is Le Figaro that says this, Hollande's personality. They say that because of the fact that he's somebody who can't make up his mind, and because he puts off difficult decisions, well, he pays for it in opinion polls.
And those polls come, meanwhile, as several trade unions have called for a strike today. They're angry about plans by the government to reform the labour laws here in France.
That's right. Now, this is in La Croix. It points out that looks at this Réforme pour l'emploi, this labor reform, what's the for and the against. Now, back in January, business representatives and trade unionists managed to strike this deal to reform the French labor laws. Aujourd'hui en France takes a closer look at this as well and points out that it wasn't all trade unionists that signed this deal. There were hardliners, for instance, the Force Ouvrière and the CGT that did not sign this, and they're the ones that are calling to strike today. The idea of the labor law is to, reform is to make France more competitive by having a kind of flexi security system, a French style of that. But trade unionists are upset about one measure which would allow business owners to decrease wages for a 2-year period to get through a difficult period. So this is going to be discussed by the ministers tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about it.
I'm sure we will. But sticking with business stories, another one that's got a lot of coverage in the French papers today is that decision by Switzerland over the weekend to crack down on bankers' bonuses.
That's right. Libération wonders, well, actually, should we do just like the Swiss have done? So there was this referendum where 68% of Swiss people voted in favor of this law that would impose strong limits on executive compensation like golden parachutes, bonuses, etc. Libération points out that back in July, François Hollande did sign a symbolic decree that would limit the salary of CEOs, but this was only in the public sector. And according to Libération, well, the government now could actually be inspired by this Swiss model to impose similar rules here in France.
Okay, well, moving on to something a little bit different now. Who is going to be the next pope? The French papers all want to know.
That's right. Le Figaro is looking at the Asian community, the Catholic community in Asia, and wonders if the third millennium could be an Asian one. Now, it points out that Asia is the most dynamic hotbed of the Catholic Church compared to Europe and Africa. It's where there's the strongest growing number of clergymen. Now, Le Figaro also takes a closer look at a Filipino cardinal who actually could have a chance of being the next pope. His name is Luis Antonio Tagle. He's 55 years old. He's familiar with traditions, but also he's very modern. For instance, he has 100,000 fans on Facebook. And while we're talking about cardinals, well, Le Parisien has a funny article and a photo of, here we can see him here, an Italian man who, let's say sweet-talked his way into a pre-conclave meeting. He's the one on the left there. And apparently he was very convincing. He's shaking hands with all sorts of cardinals, but it was his cassock that gave him away. It was too short, and he was wearing that silly hat that just has nothing to do with cardinals.
Definitely. It looks quite convincing, though. He definitely blends in, doesn't he? Good for him. I'd love to know what he heard. But thank you very much to Florence for that look at today's French newspapers.